Figures from the National Bureau of Statistics before the advent of COVID-19 have shown that over 82 million Nigerians are living below poverty line, which represents 40% of the entire population. But according to the World Bank, COVID-19 shock alone is projected to push about 5 million more Nigerians into poverty in 2020. With the already existing level of insecurity ravaging the northern part of the country, which has in turn impacted limited access to food, conflicts are worsening poverty levels in Africa, the most populous nation, which may experience its worst recession in 40 years as a result of the negative impact of the pandemic on its economy. Nigeria is projected to become the world's third most populous nation by 2050, with over 400 million people, 400 million citizens. There are fears that the country's poverty level may double, largely due to the exponential population growth. It's in this view, or in the view of this, that President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated the National Steering Committee to oversee the development of Nigeria Agenda 2050 and Medium-Term National Development Plan to lift 100 million people out of poverty by 2030. This latest development will succeed Vision 2020 and the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan 2017 to 2020 in order to ensure continuity and efficiency in the country's development planning. The steering committee will oversee the execution of key deliverables, including recommending measures to ensure the continuous implementation of the plans, even after the expiration of the tenure of successive administrations, including legislation, if required. Now the question is, how effective is the National Steering Committee, especially at this time when many Nigerians will be may be sliding into this worst, as the country will be sliding into its worst recession in 40 years amid COVID-19 pandemic. Well, as usual, I won't be doing this alone. Joining me to discuss this is the president of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is also a former minister, Prince Adetokunbo Kayode. Thank you very much for your time. Now, let me ask you, we have seen series of policy documents before now, and we have had the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Now we have shifted focus to the Nigerian Agenda 2050 and Medium-Term National Development. Please, can we get a picture or a better understanding of what your committee stands for?
Well, the National Steering Committee is to help put in place a new vision for the country. A country cannot survive without a vision and without a plan, So the work of the committee is to help work with government and the nation to put a national development plan, a visionary plan for 2020, 2050, and the medium-term plan frameworks.
Now, but some say Nigeria do not lack developmental plans or documents to work with. Many say the issue has to do with more of implementation. What do you make of this?
Well, that is quite true. We've had quite a number of plans in the past. We've had 3 5-year development plans. We have had 2 rolling plans. We have just had the Vision 2020 that was dead on arrival, and the ERGP, which we are concluding this year, has met some average level of implementation. But the important has been the lack of continuity, the lack of will to see through the plans that have been put in place, and more importantly, the tendency to take government as if it's personal and not understand that government is a continuum, that even when you make a plan, however imperfect, you must see it through and continue to improve on it. But we're hoping that with this new effort, we can actually learn lessons from the past and do the right thing for our country.
Now, sir, lifting 100 million people out of poverty within the next 10 years seems to me like a daunting task. Now, how do you and your members, your team members, all of you coming together, intend to make this become a reality?
Well, the issue is not whether we have to make it a reality. It is the truth. In fact, for me, the government is just being conservative. We should seek to lift more people out of poverty. You see, Nigeria's population increases between 2.8 to 3% every year. And you know what that means. A population of about 200 million, we're looking at between 4.5 to 5 million people or more every year. That is, we're creating new countries every year. So if we are talking of 10 years, just multiply 4.5 by 10. So if, as you are taking 100 out of poverty, another 45 is coming on board. So we really have a daunting challenge before us, but it is doable. It's just a matter of audacity, you know, the strength, and the conviction, the desire to articulate and to implement a vision for the country. And only one person honestly can do that. And leadership, we just need a strong leader who will, you know, capture this vision and sit on it and implement it and ensure that it's cast in a way that no other president will come or government will come and want to put an end to it and start his own afresh. We have to run this country as it's a continuum. So for me, we need to do much more than that, but it's a good starting point.
Now, talking about what you just mentioned, continuity regards to policies and plans of government, how well would you now say this very one we're looking at, that all of this will be instituted? We talk of legislations, where some come with no of PIB and all of that. As an example, it's been on for God knows how long. So how well do you see all of this being instituted with this very committee?
Well, first of all, we're slightly late with the 2020-2050 plan because this maybe ought to have come in earlier, maybe last year or even a year before. The RGP ends this year, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how we can immediately put down a plan that will capture the vision that we want to implement for our country, and how we can put this on stream quickly. But having said that, the important thing is that we are going to start, and we, all of us, can feel it, because it's when you feel it, you know it. We know we can no longer do the way we do things in the past. We must plan big and plan for the future, and it's quite possible. I think the team, the committee put together is strong. Again, there's a lot of preponderance of government. I think this has to be, we have to think out with this going forward, because you see, the government is on the two legs, the private sector and the public sector. And fortunately, as I understand it, the private sector actually work for the public sector. There has to be a preponderance of people who are driving business, who are driving enterprise, who are driving education, who are driving health. Because the private sector is driving all of this stuff, and they really need to have a lot of preponderance in the committee. But having said that, I think, as I said, we are on a good starting point, and we have solid leadership in the committee, and I think we're all committed to doing our best for the country.
So indeed, you agree with me that the fact that the private sector surely has a role to play in economic development becomes very key here. How are you seeing this administration leverage on that in building infrastructures, in transportation, in all of the sectors? How well would you assess this government taking advantage of PPP, which everybody keeps talking about is the way to go at this time?
Well, you know, the interesting thing is that there are two governments in Nigeria, and it's very important to understand this. There is the president sitting in the villa and trying to do something. And this is not only for President Buhari. This is what has happened in the past. You know, people sit at the top level of government and they're looking at this, how do we make this thing work? Then they take a decision. And somewhere in the middle is the civil service, the real government, that does not buy into that vision, that does not buy into that decision, and make sure it doesn't work. The civil service in Nigeria does not want to have anything to do with PPP. So that's why even the little effort of government to bring in the private sector to support it they are ironed out, they are closed out. And look at the railway business. Railway is huge. It's an engine of growth. It's not just transportation. It is so big, it's so important for our economy, it's so important for even our budget, because we will continue to spend money on roads unless we make the rails work. But look at it today. The private sector is completely crowded out of the rail system. And that has to change quickly. And I hope that in the when we go to the committee and begin to work, we'll put in a robust plan that ensures that the private sector is very, very active in infrastructure delivery for this country, whether it's rail, airline, roads, and everything, and transportation, both water and road. It's very critical that they should be involved. And I can tell you, the structure put in place by government, the ICRC, Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission, what do? I can't feel them. And they're more than, they're almost, how many years? Almost 13, 14, 15 years old. You can't feel them. Rather than being the engine for promotion of PPP, I think they are, either they need to rearticulate their mandate, but there's something wrong. You see, government alone can never do it. In everything, look at education today. The private sector is more involved in education than government. The same thing with health. Look at security that government alone wants to do. It's not going to work. On one hand, government will say security is everybody's business. On the other hand, government wants to do it alone. Involve the private sector. We are all Nigerians. We all have a stake in this. And I hope the new plan will be able to articulate this position and make sure that everybody is mainstream and know that the government stands on two legs, private sector, and that the civil service is reformed. The governance structure must be reformed to ensure that the vision of government, of the president, of the leadership is felt and is implemented.
It's very key there. Now, COVID-19 has come with its negative effects on the global economy. I know you also you're a member of business environment, talking of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, the president of the chambers. Now, tell us how this has affected your members, business people. What are the effects? We've seen GDP figures dwindling. We've seen all of the figures, inflation, everything not looking very good. Tell us how you've been reacting to this.
Yes, you know, the pandemic will ultimately turn out to be more than a public health affair. It will be more of an economic pandemic, and we will begin to feel impact from next year. Our condition is worsened by two things: the collapse in the price of oil, as well as the fact that unwittingly, we have failed to diversify our economy the way we've been thinking about for the past 20, 30 years. But having said that, everybody will get a haircut. Both the private sector and government, all of us will be negatively impacted. That is a fact. The economy will slide into recession, but it's not the end of the world. All we need to understand is that we have these challenges and we design a way to face it. But if we continue to do business as usual, not factoring the fact that we are in dire straits, like most countries of the world, and who are already making plans as to how to tackle it, then we'll be in more serious trouble. The service sector is absolutely devastated. The hospitality sector is virtually dead. The services sector is heavily, seriously damaged because, and this is a sector that really employ a lot of young people. You know, whether as you see a lot of students working in the events management, events sector, and other people are kept busy. Thousands of them. Now they're absolutely out of job, and all that have its own multiplier effect in the sector. For instance, there's no money. Nobody is going to sew new clothes. Nobody is going to, Nollywood, all those areas where we've been doing well and having them. They're going to go down. Music, a lot of them are going to be heavily impacted. So what is government doing? Now, let me tell you a short story. Just at the wake of the pandemic, the CBN made available 50 billion naira to National Microfinance Bank to give to the private sector, as succor, to support them. This was a very, it was heavily, we really appreciated it. It was a good move by government, smart move. Government that's acting, you know. But what is National Microfinance do? They absolutely stultify the plan of government to date. They refuse to work with the private sector, the organized private sector, against the directive of the governor of Central Bank and Mr. President. Because I wrote directly to the president and he agreed that, look, work with the private sector so we can have records, we know who is getting what, and this money can come back and can be recycled, so that it can be turned around to others. But up to date, nobody knows what Master Microfinance Bank, a company owned by 100% by CBN of Nigeria, by the federal government, what they do with that money. I want to call them out. They must account for it because we must begin to put an end to this kind of thing. Look, even if though it's not enough, but if government makes available something for the SMEs, because we're an SME country, the government officials must allow it to work. And not allowing it to work, and nobody is being called out, and nobody is being punished or being at least challenged on this is wrong. So we want to call them out. They must account for every brass, every kobo of that 50 billion. And because next year, government will need to do more of that type of intervention. Where will the money come from? This money should have been recycled by now and go to others. So these are part of the challenges we're having in the private sector for the SMEs.
Indeed.
And a lot has to be done for them, but the little that has been done is still not being allowed to reach the targets.
Yeah.
We must put an end to that.
So the
impact said that the economy will be devastated, but Nigerians are strong, we are not lazy people, and we will get around it, but it will be hard.
All right, then let's leave it at that note. President Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Prince Adetokunbo Ademola, thank you very much for your time joining us on Business Nigeria this afternoon.